Every year, U.S. News and World Report analyzes cities to tell us the places where people are happiest and most fulfilled. This year, out of the 150 most populous cities, Raleigh ranked number 2. That's right, second place. Why be first when you can be second? We might not have Rocky Mountains and bookshops specializing in marijuana cookbooks, looking at you, Boulder, number 1, but Raleigh is still a pretty special city. Today, we're going to look at 5 reasons Raleigh made the top of the list. I think this U.S. News ranking is particularly meaningful because while many rankings can be driven by the marketing the city does to get into the top magazine lists, this one is actually done by taking a view of every single one of the most populous cities and creating an algorithm that gives us a numerical value to easily compare. And y'all know how much I love my algorithms. That's like number 2 to the spreadsheet. First, let's look at the methodology U.S. News uses to come up with their rankings. They use 5 criteria, and you can see each city's ranking in the scorecard here on the page, which is really handy. They have something like this for U.S. News car rankings that I really like. Have you ever used that? Every time I'm shopping for a car, I really like being able to look for 4 or more bubbles on the reliability ratings. Now you know more about me than you really needed to know. I just think these scorecards are really handy. But let's look at the city rankings and the different categories they analyzed. First is the desirability index. This is actually a survey that they do asking people where they prefer to live. The second one is the value index. This blends the annual household income with housing costs for both renters and homeowners. Job market is next. They get this ranking by combining the average salary and the unemployment rate. Then they analyze quality of life. This measurement is a little more detailed. It's a combination of measurements of things that have been shown to have a big influence on overall health and happiness. They look at crime reports, quality of healthcare and hospitals, quality of education, which is a measurement of the college readiness of all public schools. So this is not just looking at the schools with the top test scores, but how the entire city did as a whole. They also look at average commute times and something called the Community Well-Being Index, which is put together by the Boston University School of Public Health. And finally, net migration. This measures how the population is growing. They control for births and deaths to see if more people are coming to the area than leaving it. They figure if more people are coming than going, it's probably a pretty good place to live. Now let's see how Raleigh scored in all these areas and why they scored the way they did. Net migration and desirability are the least complicated data points. They're pretty much straight numbers and there isn't much to say about them, so I'll just tell you that we scored 7.6 on desirability and a 7.8 on net migration. Remember, the desirability rating is the results of the survey asking people to rank different cities by preference of living there. Next, let's look at the job market. The average salary in Raleigh is $56,000 compared to $53,000 for the U.S. average. That means that salaries are 5.6% higher in Raleigh compared to the U.S. average. Keep that number in mind because in just a second, we'll look at housing costs and see how our housing costs compared to the national housing costs, which is important because who cares if your salary is higher if housing is so high that you can't afford a home. You can also see that the unemployment rate here in Raleigh is much lower than the national average at 6.4%. Also notice that back when the market crashed in 2008, Raleigh really didn't see as much of a drop off as many other places in the U.S. And you can also see the same can be said for the pandemic. It simply did not affect us as much as other places because we have such a strong job market. In regards to the pandemic economy, I think because tech is a big industry here in Raleigh, we had a large percentage of people who could more easily shift from in-person work to working from home, which helped us a lot as well. But overall, we have a very diverse group of industries, which is really good. In addition to tech, we've got the pharmaceutical industry, we've got higher education with multiple universities and small colleges. Raleigh is the capital city, so we have state government's employment. When you have a city that only has one industry, there's less protection when economies change. So our economic diversity is a big plus. Raleigh scored 7.5 out of 10 on the job market index. Now let's look at the costs. The median home price in Raleigh is $329,000 compared to $315,000 for the U.S. average. So it's 4.4% higher, so slightly higher than the median throughout the U.S. Although, like we noted above, the median income in Raleigh is 5.6% higher than the national average. So that more than offsets the higher housing prices. But I honestly think this metric should have been done differently because if you compare the median home price in Raleigh, which is in the 150 most populous cities, to the average throughout the country, that means they're averaging in homes that are in the vast swaths of the U.S. that are sparsely populated. If you look at the housing prices for the top 5 cities, you get this. Which makes the average $325,000, $10,000 higher than the average for the country, which makes Raleigh right about average and number 2. I'm so proud. Anyway, you know I always get curious when making these videos, and when I pulled those top 5 median home prices, it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Now, this video is not about national home prices, but give me just a minute to rant so I can get it off my chest and I'll get back to Raleigh. And it actually does apply to our topic. I know real estate agents all over the country, and I'm personally familiar with housing prices in many popular cities. And I know one thing. Austin, Texas median home price is nowhere near $377,000. According to Zillow, the median home price in Austin right now is $562,000. I know most realtors shun Zillow, but generally we only have concerns about their estimates of what houses will sell for in the future. Their data on past sales is perfectly valid, and Boulder is even worse, $931,000. That's almost double what US News says. I think their numbers are pretty old. The others in the top 5 are pretty close, but I'm going to go ahead and update those numbers according to Zillow so we can see where Raleigh stands. Now, with the updated numbers, the average home price is $466,000, and that makes Raleigh look positively affordable. Of course, the median price would be more useful, but I'm not going to go through all 150 cities and gather the data to get a more accurate metric. Maybe US News will ask me my opinion before they release the 2022 stats. You think? The value index for Raleigh was 7.7 out of 10. Before we talk about quality of life in Raleigh, which is really what makes the city a great place to live, let's look at commute times. You'll notice that Raleigh is not real strong on public transportation, even though we did just complete an overhaul of our city bus system, which expanded how many buses we have on the ground and the number of routes they have throughout the city. Even so, the fact is that almost everyone in Raleigh commutes by car. I really love this map they have on commute times, and I wish I had seen it years ago because it visualizes something that comes up frequently in my initial consults with buyers. How far exactly is it to Clayton? Well, now you know. You can see in the graphic that Clayton, Garner, and Wake Forest have the longest commute times in the Raleigh area. And that little green area on the left is Chapel Hill. Remember, Chapel Hill is a small college town. Most people who live in Chapel Hill proper work at the university or the hospital, and Chapel Hill is only 21 square miles as opposed to Raleigh, which is 147 square miles, so definitely much smaller commutes in Chapel Hill. But let's move on to quality of life. Like we said earlier, this score incorporates several different criteria: education, crime, and commute times. Let's go ahead and start with education, specifically public education in Raleigh. All schools in Raleigh are part of the Wake County school system. If you haven't seen my video about the Wake County system, you can watch it right here, and that is a really detailed description of how the system works. The student-teacher ratio in Wake County schools is 18:1. The US News report looks specifically at the College Readiness Index. In order to analyze this, they look at 2 elements: what percentage of students participate in AP or IB exams, and what percentage took and earned a 3 or higher on the APs or a 4 on the IB. Raleigh scored a 7.5 out of 10 for school rankings. The next quality of life indicator is crime. Raleigh has traditionally been a very low crime city for its size. In 2021, Advisor Smith ranked Raleigh as the number 3 safest large city in the country, and neighboring Cary as the number 1 safest mid-sized city in the country. Overall, US News gave Raleigh a 7 out of 10 for crime, better than the national average overall, and violent crime was less than the national average, but property crime was just above the national average for similarly sized metro areas. Within the city of Raleigh, we don't have any nationally ranking hospitals. However, all of the local hospitals are high ranking in particular procedures. For example, UNC Rex Hospital is high performing in aneurysm repair, heart failure, and heart bypass surgery. They also have great reviews, and my family has personally had very positive experiences at Rex Hospital. But if you have medical complexities that need a nationally ranking hospital, Raleigh is just 25 minutes from Duke and UNC hospitals, which are some of the best in the country. If you like this video, you'll probably also like this video where I interviewed locals about their most and least favorite things about living in Raleigh. Thanks for watching.